Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a pivotal moment in modern history, America's entry into World War I. For years, as Europe was tearing itself apart in the trenches, the United States watched from the sidelines. Why did they wait so long to join the fight? And what happened when this sleeping giant finally awoke? Let's unravel the story. When the Great War erupted in 1914, the overwhelming sentiment in America was to stay out of it. President Woodrow Wilson even won his 1916 re-election campaign with the slogan, "He kept us out of war." This wasn't just a political strategy, it reflected the heart of the nation. Many Americans were immigrants or children of immigrants from the very European countries now at war. Taking sides felt like a betrayal of their heritage, a family feud they wanted no part in. The idea of sending American boys to die in a foreign conflict over complex European alliances seemed absurd. Isolationism wasn't just a policy, it was a deep-seated cultural belief. America was separated by a vast ocean, and most people wanted to keep it that way. Why get tangled in Europe's ancient quarrels? The focus was on building a nation at home, not policing the world. Economically, neutrality was also incredibly profitable. While the US government was officially neutral, American businesses were not. They were selling massive amounts of food, raw materials, and, crucially, weapons to the Allied powers. Primarily Britain and France, the American economy was booming. Factories were running at full capacity, and farmers were selling every crop they could grow. This trade created a complex situation. While America was politically neutral, its economy was heavily invested in an Allied victory. If Britain and France were to lose, they wouldn't be able to pay back the enormous loans they had taken from American banks. So, while the public championed isolation, the nation's financial health was becoming increasingly tied to the fate of the Allies. It was a delicate balancing act that couldn't last forever. So what pushed the US over the edge? It wasn't one single event, but a series of provocations that slowly turned public opinion. The first major factor was Germany's policy of unrestricted submarine warfare. Germany's U-boats were sinking any ship, military or civilian, that entered the war zone around Britain. This policy directly threatened American lives and commerce. The most infamous incident was the sinking of the British passenger liner, the Lusitania, in May 1915. Nearly 1,200 people died, including 128 Americans. The sinking caused a wave of outrage across the United States. It was seen as a barbaric act of aggression against innocent civilians. Germany temporarily backed down after fierce American protests, but the damage was done. The image of Germany as a ruthless aggressor was firmly planted in the American mind. The final straw came in early 1917. Germany, desperate to break the stalemate on the Western Front, announced it would resume unrestricted submarine warfare. They were gambling that they could starve Britain into submission before the US could effectively mobilize and send troops to Europe. They knew this would likely bring America into the war, but it was a risk they were willing to take. Then, something straight out of a spy novel happened. British intelligence intercepted and decoded a secret message from Germany's Foreign Secretary, Arthur Zimmermann, to Mexico. This message, known as the Zimmermann Telegram, proposed a military alliance between Germany and Mexico if the US entered the war. Germany promised to help Mexico reconquer lost territories, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. When the Zimmermann Telegram was made public, Americans were furious. It was one thing for Germany to attack ships in the Atlantic, but to plot with a neighboring country to invade American soil, that was a direct threat to national security. The combination of renewed U-boat attacks and the Zimmermann Telegram was too much to ignore. The isolationist sentiment that had been so strong began to crumble. President Wilson, who had tried so hard to maintain peace, now saw no other option. On April 2, 1917, he went before Congress and asked for a declaration of war, framing it not as a fight for territory or wealth, but as a crusade to make the world safe for democracy. 4 days later, the United States officially entered World War I. When America declared war, its military was nowhere near ready for a major European conflict. It was small, poorly equipped, and lacked experience. But the US had two things the exhausted European powers desperately needed: a massive industrial capacity and a huge population. The country launched an incredible mobilization effort. Factories that once made cars started producing tanks and airplanes. A draft was instituted, and millions of young men, known as Doughboys, were trained for combat. The arrival of these fresh, enthusiastic American troops in 1918 had a profound psychological impact on both sides. For the Allies, who were demoralized after years of brutal trench warfare, the Americans were a symbol of hope. Their sheer numbers guaranteed that the tide would turn. For the Germans, already stretched to their breaking point, the sight of endless waves of American soldiers was a devastating blow to morale. On the battlefield, American forces played a critical role in halting the final major German offensive of the war in the spring of 1918. They then went on the attack. In battles like Chateau-Thierry, Below Wood, and the Meuse-Argonne offensive, the American troops proved their mettle. They were inexperienced and took heavy casualties, but their aggressiveness and sheer numbers helped break the German lines that had been static for years. The Meuse-Argonne offensive, in particular, was the largest and deadliest battle in American military history, involving over 1.2 million American soldiers. Their relentless push helped shatter the German army's will to fight. Ultimately, America's entry didn't just add more soldiers to the fight, it fundamentally changed the balance of power. The infusion of American money, materials, and manpower was something Germany simply could not match. By the autumn of 1918, the German High Command knew the war was lost. The arrival of the Americans had tipped the scales decisively, leading to the armistice on November 11, 1918. Although America was a latecomer to the war to end all wars, its involvement was decisive. It transformed the United States from an isolated, regional power into a major player on the world stage, a role it has continued to play ever since. The decision to enter the war reshaped not only the outcome of the conflict, but also the course of the 20th century and America's place in it. Thank you so much for watching. It's a complex piece of history with so many moving parts. What do you think was the single biggest reason for the US entering the war? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.